I think it was about the third Sunday after we began to pastor in Highland Park. It was Easter Sunday. And prior to that, a few days before that, one of the elders had come in the office and he handed me a flyer that had been passed out by the pastor at Ebel Hall, this called My Friend's House of Highland Park. And the pastor was Mike O'Brien. And it was an invitation to the Easter services. And I said, hey, let me have that. So I called Mike and I said, listen, Pastor, you know, I don't really like the fact that you're giving out flyers to people in my church, and I would hope that you wouldn't do that in the future. And he kind of fumbled his words a little bit and said, Pastor Mark, isn't it? I said, no, Mark has left. I'm the new pastor, and my name is Jim Kingsbury. And he said, Jim, are you in your office? I said, yes. He said, stay right there. No problem. So Mike, who lived maybe a mile from our church building, came up and, how did this happen? We started talking, and he goes, you're not serious. I said, no, I'm just messing with you. I pray that bust out the hall there with people coming in and the people coming to Christ. Mike, I just had to have a little bit of fun with that because I had not really had any time to tell him. I don't think he knew how to get a hold of him because he'd been in my class and, I was in the Philippines, came back, and like 2 weeks later, here we are at Easter. So we began, obviously, the friendship that started, the bonding that started in Bible college when I bummed a cup of coffee off of him was now paying off these kinds of dividends. We began to pray and develop a friendship. We had a lot of coffee together. We both love Winchell's donuts and get a chocolate bar and a cup of coffee. We did a lot of that. And we also prayed each week. And Wednesday was a day that I was praying and fasting. We had another guy with Teen Challenge that joined us. And so the three of us joined every week on Wednesdays, prayed. And not too long into that, I had, which I'm just going to call it a revelation. God just sort of lifted this veil, and I understood the veil regarding the future. I understood that we were to merge churches. That my friend's house was to merge with the Highland Park Foursquare Church, and that Mike was to be the pastor. Now, I didn't share that with him at first, but until I was really confident in my heart, this really is something that God has spoken to me. And so he said, I told him, and he said, you're nuts, you're crazy. There's just so much wrong with that. I mean, there's just too many obstacles. I just can't see that. And I said, well, you're crazy. I said, okay, well, ask your wife. Now Lori was doing the children's ministry, and they were setting up and tearing down in this Ebel Hall. We were sitting in a good facility, a big facility, with a big sanctuary, sat like 300 people, 250, 300 people. We had classrooms, we had offices, we had a 3-unit apartment building next door. We had stuff. I mean, we were, and it was debt free. And so I said, not that Lori would be, grasping that, but I'm just only saying that if she has a heart for ministry, she knows what can happen here in this place. And said, so just talk about it together and see if you can't see how this might fit and really increase and your ministry opportunities and that. So that was what that was about. And so he did and she did. And so we began to talk about how that might happen. And we set up some criteria that everybody had to agree, that our wives had to agree, that our denominational leadership had to agree, that the congregation had to agree. And when we had all of those agreements and what all that meant in terms of, say, Mike becoming a Foursquare pastor or in the church being okay with that, and how that might work, and would his denominational leadership release him? There's some things like that. And when our guy would identify with Dr. Jones, our district supervisor, would he agree with that? So we had all these little things along the way that we're going to go through these one at a time. So we were armed, first of all, with the agreement of our wives. And then we proceeded from there. Talk more about that as we go along, but it was, I mean, more than cool.